assignment is. So the assignment that we have is this one right here. It's DR4. And this is where we're going to draw several perfect squares within each other. And whenever I give you an assignment, you should always reread what I've written out here, because it'll go over in a written form what I'm going to give to you verbally and show you on the drawing. So we're going to end up drawing a perfect square, and then we're going to draw 5 more squares inside it, and between rotated and unrotated. And I'll go ahead and show you how we're going to do that. So let's see if I can straighten this up. Okay, so you can see my paper here. And this is, you're going to be doing this on ClearPrint. And so if you read the assignment, I always say, on a new piece of ClearPrint, you know, lay out the title block. So I'm just going to mark at the 1-inch height where my title block would be. And it's pretty light on there, but you can see it if you look clearly. It's 1 inch above the bottom. And then when you darken it in, you're going to be a 1/2 inch in from each edge. And I'll go over how to use the Ames lettering guide again in a minute. So what I want you to do is I want you to draw a 6-inch square centered on the available drawing space. That's the drawing space between the top of the title block and the top of the paper and the side of the paper. So does anybody have a clue what would be a good way to find where the center of that paper is? How would you find the center of that paper?
Would you go 6 inches from each side of the paper?
Well, if my square is 6 inches, my paper's only 1.5 inch. My paper's only 8.5 inches. So if my square is 6 inches, I can't go 6 inches from the edge, right? I could do the math, right? So 8.5 minus 6 is what? I'm not answering this question. So, what?
2.5.
2.5. So I could go, and then 1/2 of 2.5 is what? What's 1/2 of 2.5? What's 1/2 of 2? And then what's 1/2 of 1/2?
1 1/4.
1 1/4. You guys really have to get good at math. You have to get good at fractions. We're dealing with this archaic measuring system that relies on fractions. So you have to get good at it, whether you're going into architecture, construction management, or technology, carpentry or plumbing. You have to know fractions. If any of you are in carpentry, no, I don't think any of you are in carpentry right now. It's last year's group. So he's like droning in on the hands. So I could measure over 1 1/4, 1 1/4, and I get 6 inches. But if I'm off a little bit, I might not be right. If you've ever laid tile, you'll know that you can find, by snapping from corner to corner, anybody ever do this? You can find the center of the paper. I'm going to make it pretty dark so you can see it. I go from other corner, and I'm going from the above the title block, the corner where the title block line meets up with the edge of the paper. And there I've got the center of my paper. You can watch from over here if you want. Okay, there I've got the center of my paper. Very quickly, much quicker than measuring, right? So all that does is tell me that's the dead center of the paper. So to get a 6-inch perfect square, I want to go 3 inches above, 3 inches to the right, 3 inches to the left, and 3 inches below. So this little X is not part of your perfect square because it's not done with a 45. If I put my 45 up there, you'll see it's not at a 45-degree angle. It's just finding the center of that paper. So what I want to do now from that point is I'm going to draw a guideline from the center, going up and then going down. Then I'm going to take my eraser and I'm going to erase this line. This is really important to do because I find too many people use that line to draw their square. And if you're drawing a perfect square, it needs to be with a 45-degree triangle, not with this one. So here's the center of my square, and now I need to go 3 inches above or 3 inches below. The other thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take my 45-degree triangle at that center point, and I'm going to draw a 45-degree line through. So I've got like this spiral around. So now all I have to do is measure once. I'm going to use my scale to only measure one time. I'm going to measure 3 inches in any one of the 4 orthogonal directions. So I'm going to measure 3 inches over right there, and then I don't have to measure again at all. So where that, I can see some of my lines aren't long enough. So where that 3-inch measuring point is, I'll draw a vertical line. I have to extend this 45 also. Where that line crosses the top and bottom 45-degree lines, I'm going to go straight across. And then it will cross my other 45 degrees, and if I did this correct, these two lines line up perfectly. So there's my 6-inch square, done very quickly, only measuring once. It's much easier than trying to measure over and get up, because if I measured over 1 1/4 and over 1 1/4 here and say it was off by a 1/16 of an inch, and then I measured top and bottom, I wouldn't get a perfect square. And with a perfect square, you want to just measure once. So once I've got that done, now I want to draw a rotated square. So I want to come from this point to here, to here, to here, to here. And I just used my 45-degree triangle to do that. Right now, I'm not concerned with where my lines are going because they're guidelines. If you were standing here and looking at my drawing, they're much darker than I would normally draw if we were face to face, but I want you to be able to see them on the camera. So I've got guidelines. Now I need to draw a square that's not rotated within there, where these two 45-degree lines intersect. So I'm going to go across, and whenever I use my triangle, it always has to rest on the parallel rule, or I'm not going to get a perfectly straight line, and I did something wrong. Right there, I've got a gap. And it's probably going to come back to haunt me really quick. We'll see. Then I want to do a rotated square again. Yep, I'm a little bit off. Then I do a square that's straight up and down. And then I do a rotated square. And if you're off, mine seems to have self-corrected. If you're off, you're going to be way off when you come to the end here. So now you can see I've got one square here, one square rotated, one square straight, rotated, straight, rotated. So I've got 3 rotated and 3 straight squares. Any questions so far? All right. When you read the assignment, remember what are the 4 tools that was on your quiz? What are the 4 tools for erasing? It was the eraser, the brush, the erasing shield, and your pounce, this little guy. And so you want to have the pounce on your paper to keep the paper clean. It seems counterintuitive because I'm putting a bunch of junk on my paper, but it's little pieces of eraser And if I have that on the paper, my pencil will slide them across it, and that absorbs the excess graphite dust. So now what I want to do is the two biggest squares, the first straight one and the first rotated one, I want to be heavy lines. Then the next two I want to be medium lines, and then the last two I want to be light lines. If you do this correctly, it looks like a vortex. Heavyweight lines are two medium weight lines that overlap. So if I want to put those on there, I want the overlapping line to go towards the center so that my corner stays nice and crisp here. So I'm going to go ahead and demo a couple of the lines. So, and when I'm doing my heavyweight line, it's a medium weight line, and medium weight line go back by 4 to 6 times, and then I put another line, medium weight line on top of that. And you can always go back and make something heavier. It's harder to go back and make it lighter. All your drawings should be done on clear print, so if you need more paper, come to the studio and I can give some to you. And do you notice how I am at an angle, both when I'm on my parallel rule and on my triangle, because I want to be in that groove between the paper and the triangle. So I would do that heavy, and I think mine are a little bit light. And I will post a picture of one that was done previously on Blackboard so that you can see what we're looking for. I'll actually go get it in a second so I can show it to you. So this is kind of a fun assignment, I think. I like hand drawing though. I always get somebody who asks me, why do we have to hand draw? We've got computers. You have a pencil too. You always need to be able to be in the field with a contractor or with a client and be able to sketch your ideas out, whether you're in plumbing, carpentry, construction, or architecture. Let me go grab the sample. Okay, so this sample's not correct. So maybe I'll finish out mine and put it on there. But if you look at this, I gave, she's got a heavy line here and the medium weight line here, but the center lines all look the same. So I dinged her for that, and she didn't center it on the paper. You should have equal space at the top and between the title block. I think she centered it from the corner here up to there instead of from above the title block. So I'll post a different picture, but this is the one that we did last week with the 3 perfect squares, and that's a really nice example of a light, medium, heavy. You're going to keep these all in your binder like this. You should keep all the notes, keep it with all the assignments that I give you, and then we are going to turn that in when you come in for the midterm. I have the midterm scheduled, I think it's October 19th, so it's a little ways away. We'll get a ways down on the drawing. If you ever want to come in and show me your drawings and get some feedback on them, you can do that anytime. Either I would always just double check, because even though I have office hours, I sometimes get called into meetings by other people. But for sure, right before class, I'm always here. All right, I want to go over the Ames lettering guide again. So what I did was your Ames lettering guide has this rotating central disc that goes around. And what I did was I moved that to the 8 so that these little lines that are perfectly squared apart are what we're going to use, and the 8 is going to line up with the tick mark down here. These are also 1/8 of an inch apart, but that makes these 1/8 of an inch apart. If I use these, I tend to tip that way, whereas if I use these, I'm more even. So when you go down, you're going to use the Ames lettering guide for all of your lettering. Always, unless like on the exam, if I just say use architectural lettering, no guidelines, then you wouldn't. So I'm going to slide across, draw a line. I'll draw them a little bit darker so you can see them, but these should be really light with your 4H lead so you can barely see them. Then I'm going to come back again. Then I'm going to go down, and I'm going to go down again. So I just broke my lead. So you would fill that up. Your name would be at least 1/8 of an inch below first and last name, and always using a straight edge. And then over here would be the date and the assignment number. So this one's a pretty straightforward assignment. Any questions before I stop this recording?
I don't have any.
Okay. Nobody else? All right. So I'm going to stop this recording.